Hello everybody, my name is Kim and I'm here to talk to you about my struggles throughout my life with my mental health diagnosis. I'm going to start off by saying I'm diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. So I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and then about 6 years ago they re-diagnosed me with schizoaffective disorder, which is more of a thought disorder. So they started off with bipolar, which is a mood disorder, and then it turned into more of a thought disorder for me. I'm also going to say I do have drugs and alcohol in my story, which I will mention throughout my story too. But I do want to say that I have 5 years in recovery now, free from drugs and alcohol. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying where I was born. I was born and raised in Mill Valley, California. I had a great childhood. One thing I did notice as a child is that I had a difficult time focusing and concentrating in school. So this is a story I like to tell. So it's like when I was in, let's say, probably 4th grade, one of the habits that I used to do is I would take out a piece of binder paper and I would write down on the binder paper, let's say there were 60 minutes in the class, I would write down 60, 59, 58, 57, and I would write all the way down to 1 minute. And I would sit in class and I would just kind of twiddle my thumbs and look around, and then I'd look at the clock and I'd say, okay, it's been 5 minutes, so I would cross off 5 minutes. And then I'd look around the room and stuff and just kind of be by myself, and then I'd look up at the clock again and it'd be another 7 minutes had gone by, And so basically why I'm telling you this is that I just couldn't concentrate, couldn't focus. And this was something as a little girl that I even noticed. So I was in 4th grade, which was about 9 years old. So this was something that bothered me. At a young age, I felt like I had anxiety. I felt like I was different than other people, and I just was so excited to get out of class. So it's like literally to the last minute, I would be crossing down my minutes as I went by. And this is just something that kind of bothered me. Something that did help me is that in 5th grade, it was suggested to me that I started violin. And I did start violin, and that's something that I carried with me to this day, and it's helped me get into college. I actually went to UC Irvine with a music scholarship. So a lot of times people that have mental health diagnosis, a lot of times they are very creative, and they tend to be very good with music, with art, very intellectual people. A lot of times there's a lot of stigma attached to mental health problems, and a lot of times people think that, we're just not not as functional or as other people in society, which is actually just going to be the opposite. It turns out that I had a very strong talent with my violin. I got many scholarships throughout my life and a lot of compliments from teachers and everything, and they all told me that I was going to be really great one day, So this was something that was very, very helpful for me with all of my problems that I ended up having, because it was something that gave me courage and gave me strength and gave me self-esteem, which is just so important for any child growing up, to know that you're good at something, So that's something that I'm really, really proud of. So I went through high school and everything went well. I did notice some deviant behavior. I started skipping school, and I started doing this in elementary school even. Like, for instance, I would call and say that I was feeling sick and I wasn't, or I wouldn't show up to school. I started ditching school in high school, and this was something that bothered me because I wasn't able to concentrate. I just couldn't focus for more than 5 or 10 minutes, and I didn't want to, and I didn't, I wanted to, but I just didn't know how. It was like too many thoughts in my head, too much distraction, too confusing for me to even attempt, I ended up going to college, UC Irvine, and this is when things got really out of control. I started smoking some marijuana and using drugs and using alcohol. And I just started really just kind of doing whatever I wanted. So I would go to school, and I was like, my teacher had complimented me and said that, I was one of his best students. So this was a huge compliment for a man that attended the London Royal Academy of Music, you know. So this was like a really big deal, but yet I still had that problem where I couldn't concentrate, and I was just so, you know, everywhere at one time that I couldn't even find the ability to just practice. If I had just practiced an hour a day, you know, he said you're going to be great, you know, but you do have to put some effort in, you know. So I wasn't even going to class, and I ended up having 2 jobs. I was just all over the place, and my manic symptoms started coming in, and I started thinking that the FBI was following me. I started thinking that that Hollywood wanted me to be an actress, that there was agents following me. I started really, really odd behavior. There was one time that me and my friends were having lunch in Irvine, so this is a little south of Los Angeles, and we were having lunch there, and I looked at my friends and I said, "Don't look over there right now, but the FBI is over there and they're watching us." And my friends were like, "Oh no," you know, and it's like, obviously they shied away from me, because it's like, okay, my friend needs a lot of help, you know. When people just say that out loud, you know, they obviously need a lot of help, you know. So that behavior got even worse and got worse and got worse, and it eventually got so bad, and my paranoia was so severe for me that I actually attempted suicide. And this is when I got my first 5150. So a 5150 is a 72-hour hold in a psych ward. And I'm so thankful and so grateful that I was able to, you know, that my roommate called an ambulance for me, you know, and I was able to do that. My mom ended up coming from Marin County to pick me up, and she said, "No, you're not staying here anymore. You're just having too much psychotic episodes, you know." And so she took me back to her house. Now, from the span of, so this was in year like 2002, okay? So we're talking like 16 years ago. So, in the span of that time till now, I have probably had at least 50 psych ward visits. So this is 72-hour holds, 2-week holds, a few day holds, you know. So this is just, and that's a lot. I mean, I'm telling you that because that's way too many, you know. And basically everything started going downhill. I went to my mom's house and I started trying to go to Marin General Hospital for psych support, and right when I got to the hospital, I told them the most direst problems that I had, which was probably something I might not have wanted to do, because I basically I said the FBI is following me, you know, Hollywood wants me to be an actress. I used to think there was cameras like in the walls videotaping me, and I told them all of that, and they just like really over-medicated me. They told me I had bipolar disorder, and they over-medicated me, and this became a problem for me. Eventually, I started exhibiting more symptoms of mental health problems, and like for instance, I used to drive my car all day long. So this would be for like, I'd probably drive for at least 6 hours, you know, and this was like pretty much what I call manic behavior. It's just really bad, poor decision-making skills, you know. And I would sit in my car and drive from Marin County to Richmond, from Richmond to San Francisco, and I would fill up my tank with gas with my credit card and out of my credit card. And it's just because I didn't want to live a normal lifestyle. I didn't know how. I didn't know what a normal person does. I was already on Social Security at the age of 22 because of my mental health diagnosis, you know. So it's like, when you're on Social Security, it's difficult to get a job. You don't really think that way, you know. You just, so anyways, I started doing that behavior. I started sleeping so much, you know, and eventually it got really bad, and I ended up going to San Francisco, and this is when I broke up with a boyfriend of mine. I went to San Francisco, and we were going to get married, and I ended up breaking up with him, and I progressed into a really awful state of illness, and I ended up getting off my meds, and I went to the Tenderloin and ended up being homeless for like a year and a half. So this wasn't just any type of homelessness. This was like, I didn't even think enough to realize that I could have gone to a homeless shelter. I could have gotten help in San Francisco. There's a lot of resources. You know, you can go to a homeless shelter, you can go to a soup kitchen. You can get help with case management, you can get therapy. You know, you can get all of these resources, and I didn't even think to utilize any of them. I used to walk around the Tenderloin like in the pouring rain with no shoes, no jacket, you know, no food for weeks on time. I would just have cereal, you know, once in a while. And it was just really, really tragic, you know. It's like I think about those people that are out there now, and it just makes me so, you know, it just makes me feel so like I want to help people, you know, because I remember when I was out there, my behavior was out of this world. I mean, there was no way that you could have a proper conversation with me, you know. I actually do these speeches for counselors in training for the police department. I do that almost every month, and I remember one time I told my story, and this police officer came up to me afterwards, and he said, "Hi, Kim, you know, my name is Officer so-and-so," and he said, "I remember you when you were out there in the Tenderloin," and he said, "I actually texted my partner when you were talking because I was just so shocked and so happy at the fact that you had recovered." He said, "We thought you were a goner." You know, I used to call the psych ward all the time, and I used to say that I was suicidal, you know, and I was faking it because I just wanted to go inside. I wanted to go in a psych ward. I wanted to get help. But I just didn't know how to accept their help, you know, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do the things that I needed to do, you know, but the same police officers used to pick me up every time. And this one guy saw me and he was like, "This is amazing that I see you and that you're doing so well," you know, and so that makes me feel like really good about myself, you know, but I was unrecognizable when I was out there. My behavior was just really, really outlandish. Anyway, so, and don't worry, my story does get better. So, you know, it does lighten up, and there is a story of hope, you know, and recovery for myself and for my family too, because when I was out there and I was homeless, you know, I hadn't spoken to my family for 2 years. So throughout my entire life, I spoke to my mom at least twice a week. And when I became homeless and I just went out there like that, I just didn't talk to her anymore. I never spoke to her. It was for 2 years. So she had a missing people's report on me. Now me and her are talking all the time. We see each other once a week at least, you know, always on holidays. I'm with all the family, you know, and they couldn't be more grateful. But when I was out there, she used to go to the Tenderloin with my stepdad in like the most dangerous area of San Francisco, pretty much is the Tenderloin, you know, lots of drugs, lots of violence, you know, and she used to go there with a picture of me, and she would walk up to these drug dealers and she would say, "Have you seen this girl?" And they would say, "Yes, I just don't know where she is. Yes, that's Kim, I just don't know where she is." And that would bring my mom to absolute tears, you know, because, okay, you know, her worst suspicion was, you know, was confirmed. It was her worst suspicion was, okay, she's in the Tenderloin somewhere. It's like the worst area to be, you know. Anyways, things started getting better. So I started when, like I said, I would call 911 often, and they would try and help me with psych ward visits. And they used to take me to this place called the Door Street Clinic. And I used to love it there because they would give us showers and give us toiletries and food and everything. And but every time I went there, this same case manager from Citywide Clinic, which is on by Mission Street, Mission and 6th, she would come over. The same case manager. She came 3 times. So they must have been calling her specifically and saying, "Listen, Kim's here again. Do you want to come and try and help her again?" And so she used to come every time, and she would say, "Listen, Kim, you're already on Social Security benefits. I can get you housing, I can get you case management, I can get you therapy, and you know, I can get you a lot of things." But I couldn't get outside of my world, outside of my thoughts, outside of my problems, you know? And so I basically, you know, just wouldn't accept her help. Well, eventually accepted her help. And she was the one that just took me out of the dredges of all that pain and all that misery and all being alone my whole life and just having such an awkward and such an unhealthy way of living into this lifestyle of having responsibilities and being accountable and paying rent on time and actually having a place to rent, you know. So she just kind of got the ball rolling, and it was just basically was success from there, you know. I did have a problem. So she got me housed, and she got me speaking with my mom again, and I did have a mental health problem flare up. After that, I did have a mental health problem, and I ended up going to jail for like 3 months. And this was basically when I got out of jail, and I did have a relapse too. When I got out of jail this last time, I went through behavioral health court, and they actually helped me to stay on track and to stay sober. And so ever since then, I've been sober now. So it's been almost 6 years now. I've been sober off of drugs and alcohol. And when I got out of jail, so now, like I said, I see my family all the time. My mom's writing a book about me, about my story and my strength. NBC has done a story on me, the Brian Williams show with NBC. They've done a story on me. LA Times wrote some articles. And I also tell my story with Mental Health Association in terms of with SOLVE, which stands for Sharing Our Lives, Voices, and Experiences, in terms of dealing with daily stigma that I have dealt with because of my problems, because of my issues. And basically, well, they're not problems or issues for me. I'm actually very grateful for who I am and for everything that I've had to endure, But anyways, I think that the stigma that I have dealt with the most in my life has been self-stigma. And the reason why I say that is because I basically, and I am the one that says that nobody's going to accept me. Like when I find out that I had schizoaffective disorder, I was the last person to tell my friend. I didn't want to tell my friends. I didn't think that they would accept me for it, And it turned out to be the opposite. And they said, hey, Kim, I have anxiety. I take meds for depression. I have this, So it turned out to be more of a success than I had thought, So anyways, now I've been housed in the same place for 6 years now. I've been sober. I have a job at a restaurant. I have a healthy relationship with my boyfriend and with my family, and I have a little doggy that I love, and just things are going really great in my recovery, and I'm just grateful for every moment when I wake up. I have a smile on my face, and there's just so much more for me to discover now. I wake up every morning, it's kind of like I have this brand new lease on life, and everything's new to me, and I get to discover everything in this world that the world has to offer, as if I was just kind of entering it. And it's kind of, it's what I have to be grateful for, Yeah, so I do know some people right now that are going through problems. I'm actually in a program called Narcotics Anonymous that I've been a part of for a while, and I've been in other recovery programs too, and I do know there's a lot of help out there, basically. A lot of times people say, that it does take, the person needs to have the desire to help themselves first. That's usually the best that you can do, is you need to know that you can help yourself, I was always stubborn, throughout my entire life when I knew that I needed help, but I didn't want to. I wasn't ready yet, I hadn't gone to jail yet. I hadn't been homeless for 2 years. I hadn't done this yet. It's like, hopefully people don't have to get to that point. But what I'm saying is a lot of times it has to happen that way. I couldn't have just gotten help, when I was smoking weed. I had to, I didn't say it's my story, but I ended up starting to smoke crack cocaine too when I was homeless, So it's like, I kind of need to keep on going. I need to get worse and worse, and it's like, eventually you're hoping that you're going to catch yourself one day and say, I've had all these people reaching out for me. And even if they're not reaching out for you, there's plenty of programs that can help you. Anybody's willing to help you, that you just walk up to and you say, I do need some assistance. Anybody's going to help you, But it just takes a little bit of desire from on your end, a little bit of your, you need to want it a little bit for yourself. And then once you do that, there's just, everything's going to open up to you, because you're going to want to progress. You're going to want to get better. Once I started getting sober, it's like everything opened up to me. Once I started managing my diagnosis, everything started to open up to me. It was like I said, everything was just new, and was just, oh, things are so much better now. It's like, I appreciate having 3 meals a day. I appreciate being, clean and stuff like that. So it's going to be more exciting than you expect. My first psychiatrist was Merck General, and they diagnosed me with bipolar. And then when I went to Citywide and I had a psychiatrist over there, he said, you're definitely going to be a schizoeffective. And so I read some books on it and know about how, it's more of a thought disorder. And that definitely made me feel much better. Because my whole life I was always trying to kind of like figure out this mood disorder, it just wasn't something that hit home for me, and it wasn't something that made me feel, okay, yeah, that's definitely what's going on, More with the schizoaffective, it's like, yeah, that is the problem, because I've had these irregular thoughts my whole life, and they weren't always drug induced. Like, you always kind of have to think about the particular patient, like, okay, well, were you on drugs? It wasn't always drug induced, and I've always had, and a lot of people can smoke weed and not have these really outlandish thoughts and this extremely strange behavior to the point where, okay, I can barely function in society anymore. Yeah. Like, I wasn't able to even function, So I basically, I was like, okay, that's definitely more what's going on with me, And it also felt better too, because like music was my best subject, and there's something to say there, because music has a lot to do with math. Because there's a lot of notes and everything, and it was my best subject because it was something that I could just really concentrate on and just really understand, Mm-hmm. So, I'm glad you asked that. It was basically fear. So it was actually something that I really thought, for instance. Yeah. It wasn't a something I was fabricating. I fully believed it. So as you can imagine, if someone's believing that, they're scared. Yeah. Why is the FBI chasing you? Obviously I had some story construed in my mind about something illegal that I had done, or something that they were gonna, try and get me for, Yeah. And so I used to tell them that because I was like really scared, and I needed them to know. It's kind of like I was even like protecting my friends, because it was like, okay, I need them to know this. Yeah, so I have taken medication in the past, and I am taking medication now, but so in the past I have taken Depakote, Seroquel, Wellbutrin, and Abilify, and when they first diagnosed me, that's when I told you that, like, because I told them everything. I was like, I just went off, because I was in a really a huge state of psychosis, and it was like, I didn't even think to like stop myself and be like, wait, you might be in a psych ward for 3 months if you continue talking like that, But anyways, so they diagnosed me with bipolar, and they put me right away on 500 milligrams of Seroquel and 1,750 milligrams of Depakote. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with those medications, but it's a lot of medication. I mean, I know Depakote's a horse tranquilizer, and Seroquel, like, they barter in jails. I had a friend that went to jail, and they bartered the Seroquel that they used to give people because it makes them go to sleep, So it's like I was on huge doses of medication, which is something that did not work for me at all. I was like, went into this state of almost comatose, it's just like wasn't able to do my daily activity. Now I'm taking a really low dosage of just one medication, and that's been working for me. Well, I wouldn't have been able to do any of my recovery without a team behind me. Like I said, it was my case manager. A case manager is a person that helps you with she used to give me my allowance even. So she used to help me with my check, my SSI check, and she would give me $10 a day, and from my money, So that's like a case manager helps you find housing and stuff. I couldn't have done it with all the support. I had a psychiatrist and I had a therapist, and I've had one ever since I started this problem, And my therapist helps me a lot because it just, I can tell them anything, and medication has helped me too, because I needed something that was just gonna, give me a boost, and just help change that problem that's going on for me in my brain, A lot of times medication doesn't help people, you don't, a lot of people don't take medication, Maybe that's going to be me someday, but I do know now that that's what I do need, But they've helped me greatly, just in terms of like staying on track and being accountable for in the first place. I mean, I hadn't worked for so long. You could imagine I've been on Social Security since I was 22, you know, so I haven't worked for, I do work now, you know, but I hadn't worked for a long time. So being accountable for anything was something that I never did, you know, but they made sure that I was accountable. You know, once a week you're going to your therapist, once a week you're going to a psychiatrist. I had to go in there 3 times a week to get my medication, you know. So, and then they would taper down with as I succeeded. But like anything in life, you know, structure, if you're in a problem, it's going to be structure that's going to help you. You know, you're going to need that structure in the beginning. I had everything. I've always had my own choices, you know, with where I decided to live and what I decided to do, you know. Of course, it wasn't fully my choice to stay sober, because when I got out of jail, like I had mentioned, I was court mandated for 3 years. I was on probation to stay sober. So that actually wasn't my choice, but I'm very glad that they forced me to do it, because I don't think I would have been able to stay sober without, you know, the courts behind it like that. Because when you're staying sober by your own accord, I've done that before, you know, and that's been a success for me, but then I've fallen off the wagon and I've gone back out, you know. They forced me to do that. They also, not forced, but I had to do it. If I didn't go, you know, I would have probably spent 2 more years in jail if I had used drugs, you know. They also court mandated me to go see my case management and see my psychiatrist, and not to take medication, but, you know, so on and so forth. And now I have 6 years sober, you know. That never would have happened if someone didn't tell me that I had to do that, you know. So it just depends on a lot of people, but I've had plenty of choices, you know, like I choose to stay healthy now, you know, and I choose a lot of my path that I have now, so. Well, right now, you know, like I said, I'm still seeing my support team. I still see my therapist just once every 2 weeks, and my psychiatrist once a month. And I'm doing that, and then I have a really good, healthy relationship. We like to play tennis. We play tennis at least 3 times a week, which is good for me, you know, because it's something I can practice on. I like to see my family and you know, hang out with them. It's great because I live in a house that has it's called Conard House, so it like has other people that have my same problems that live there, you know. And so I've become really good friends with them, and we like to do, you know, a lot of things together and hang out and stuff. San Francisco, it's really great to like take care of yourself here, because there's so many free events and so much fun things to do here. You know, it's like every time you open the newspaper or you look online or whatever, there's always something more exciting to do, you know. For me, you know, I'm actually really meticulous at this point about my self-care, you know. So just recently, I actually just lost 100 pounds, and because when I got sober a while ago, I actually looked towards food for comfort, you know. My whole life I had been really thin, but that's because I was always, you know, in a state of psychosis, which is where I don't want to eat anyways, or I was on drugs and alcohol, you know. So when I became sober, I just looked to food. So I've recently lost 100 pounds, and I'm losing another 50 now. And so that, in terms of self-care, is like a lot of counting calories, you know, and I really make sure that everything's accounted for, you know. So that's helping me with like being really meticulous and just being really analytical, because losing weight is like kind of serious. You gotta like stay under a certain amount of calories, and you gotta make sure you do things right, you know. So I'm doing that right now. For me, you know, with my self-care, I do meditation, you know, I do it all. That's why I said, like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm so grateful, you know. My grandmother, who just recently passed away at 98 years old, she used to tell me up until she was that old, she used to tell me, you know, Kim, you've gone through so many experiences. She knew everything I went through, all of my homelessness. She said, you know, you've gone through so many experiences, you've been through so much stuff that nobody has ever even considered in their lifetime of ever even hearing stories like this. She's like, that in turn is something to be grateful for. You know, you are a person that has strength and experiences and knowledge about things that nobody would ever even attempt to know about, you know. And she's like, that's going to hold you in good stead, and that's going to make you a stronger person, you know. And that just really made me feel good. She used to tell me that my whole life, you know, and she used to, you know, she used to just tell me that her whole life. Her little redheaded granddaughter, I'm the only redhead in the whole family, you know. So it's things like that that make me feel good. And the reason why I say that is because, like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm just like so grateful. It's like I want to do my meditation. I sit there and do my meditation, and I have my agenda and I have my things to do, and I like check them off, and I do all of them. I do journaling at night, you know. I like to write on my computer, you know, and it's just like everything every day. There's just something new that I'm, you know, able to discover. So. This is my doggie. Her nickname's Penny. She's such a good little girl, but she was my boyfriend's dog, and he had a few dogs, and she just like latched onto me. You know, Chihuahuas tend to do that with their owners, you know, and so she's mine now. She's not my boyfriend's anymore. So, you know, hi. You say hi? Yes. So she's been great, you know. She's been great company for me, and she makes everybody laugh because, you know, if there's enough people around her, she smiles and she shows her teeth, you know.
Yeah.
And she goes like this, so she's just like so funny, you know.
Yeah.